Nothing says healing our marriage like being trapped for 8 hours in a minivan with the woman who's been texting someone named D at 3 in the morning. I gripped the steering wheel tighter as Rachel adjusted her makeup in the passenger mirror for the 5th time since we'd left New Jersey. The Adirondacks stretched ahead of us, all pine trees and false promises of family bonding. Dad, can we please listen to something that wasn't popular when dinosaurs roamed the earth? Ellie, my 16-year-old, leaned forward from the back seat. Her black nail polish caught the sunlight streaming through the window. Classic rock-built character, I said, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. Besides, your mother picked the playlist. Rachel didn't look up from her phone. She'd been typing furiously for the past 20 minutes, her perfectly manicured fingers dancing across the screen with the kind of urgency usually reserved for medical emergencies or lottery winnings. Mom's been on her phone the whole time, Mia, my 13-year-old, whispered. She had that worried look again, the one that made my chest tight. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, sweetheart, Rachel said without lifting her eyes. Just work stuff. Work stuff. Right, because legal secretaries typically receive urgent messages on Saturday mornings that require immediate responses and secretive smiles. I turned up the radio. Tom Petty's voice filled the van, singing about running down a dream. Appropriate, considering mine had been slowly crashing for months. The first sign of real trouble came at mile marker 187. A black Escalade with tinted windows cut us off so close I could read the dealer sticker on its rear window. I yanked the wheel right, tires squealing as we swerved onto the shoulder. Tom! Rachel finally looked up, her phone clutched against her chest. Everyone okay? I checked the mirror. Both girls were wide-eyed but unharmed. What was that guy's problem? Ellie demanded. Good question. The Escalade had slowed down after forcing us off the road, matching our speed as I merged back into traffic. Through the tinted windshield, I could make out the silhouette of the driver, but nothing more. Probably just some jerk in a hurry, I said, though something felt off. The way the car had targeted us, the deliberate aggression of the maneuver. Rachel had gone back to her phone, typing even more frantically than before. Her face had gone pale, and she kept glancing at the side mirror. We stopped for gas at a rest area near Lake George. While the girls used the restroom and I filled the tank, Rachel wandered toward the vending machines. She'd left her phone on the passenger seat. I shouldn't have looked. I know that. 15 years of marriage should count for something, should earn a guy some trust. But when your wife starts acting like she's coordinating a covert operation every time she gets a text message, curiosity tends to override good sense. The screen lit up when I touched it. No passcode. That was new. Rachel had been guarding her phone like state secrets for months. The most recent message thread made my stomach drop. D. Can't wait to see you tonight. This charade has gone on long enough. Rachel, I know. Tom suspects something. We need to be careful. D. Careful is for people who don't have what we have. I'm done hiding. Rachel. Just a few more hours. The girls can't know yet. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I set the phone down carefully, making sure it landed in exactly the same position. My hands were shaking, but not from anger. Not yet. The anger would come later, along with the planning. Right now, I just felt hollow, like someone had scooped out everything important and left me with an empty shell. Rachel returned with an armload of snacks, her smile bright and artificial. Ready to get back on the road? She asked. I thought we could stop at that little diner in Shroon Lake, the one with the good pie. Sure, I said. Sounds perfect. The girls climbed back in, arguing about which movie to watch on Mia's tablet. Normal family stuff, the kind of scene that should have made me happy if I hadn't just discovered that my wife was planning to destroy it all. We drove in relative quiet for the next hour. Rachel dozed, or pretended to. Ellie had her earbuds in, lost in whatever angry music helped her cope with being 16. Mia watched a Disney movie, the cheerful songs a stark contrast to the storm building in my head. I used the time to think. 15 years of marriage doesn't end overnight, no matter what Rachel and her mysterious D thought they were planning. I'd built a good life for my family. I owned my own HVAC business, made decent money, treated my wife and daughters right. If Rachel wanted to throw that away for some affair, she could expect a fight, but not the kind of fight she was probably expecting. I'd learned long ago that the best way to fix a problem was to understand it completely first. You don't just start ripping apart a broken air conditioning unit. You diagnose the issue, trace it back to its source, then methodically address each component until the system works again, or until you decide it's beyond repair and needs to be replaced entirely. The diner in Shroon Lake was exactly the kind of place you'd expect to find on a family road trip. Red vinyl booths, a pie case that had seen better decades, and a waitress named Dolores who called everyone Han. "What can I get you folks?" Dolores asked, pencil poised over her order pad. "Cheeseburger and fries," Ellie said. "Grilled cheese, please," Mia added. "I'll have the Caesar salad," Rachel said, then immediately returned to her phone. "Make mine a double bacon cheeseburger," I told Dolores, "and coffee, lots of coffee." While we waited for our food, I excused myself to use the restroom. Instead, I walked outside and called Pete, my best friend since high school and the most reliable guy I knew. "Tom, what's up, buddy?" "I need a favor," I said, "and I need you to not ask questions." Pete was quiet for a moment. We'd known each other long enough that he could read the tone in my voice. "What do you need?" "I'm going to text you some information. If something happens to me, or if I don't check in by tomorrow night, I need you to make some phone calls." "Tom, you're scaring me here. What kind of something?" "The kind where my wife might not be who I thought she was." Another pause. "Ah, hell. I'm sorry, man." "Don't be sorry yet, just be ready." I hung up and walked back inside. Rachel was still on her phone, but she looked up when I sat down. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Perfect," I said. "Just checking on a job for Monday." Dolores brought our food, and we ate in the kind of strained silence that families perfect when they're pretending everything is normal. Ellie made sarcastic comments about the diner's decor. Mia tried to get everyone to play 20 questions. Rachel picked at her salad and typed one-handed. I watched my wife across the table and wondered when she'd become a stranger. The woman I'd married had been warm, funny, someone who laughed at my jokes and made me feel like the smartest guy in the room. This version of Rachel was cold, distracted, like she was already somewhere else. Maybe she was. We got back on the road as the afternoon sun started slanting through the windshield. The lake house we'd rented was still 2 hours away, tucked into the mountains near a town called Paradox. I'd booked it months ago, back when I still thought a change of scenery might help us remember why we'd fallen in love in the first place. Now it just felt like driving toward an ambush. The mountain roads were narrow and winding, with steep drop-offs on one side and rock faces on the other. Cell service was spotty, which seemed to make Rachel increasingly agitated. She kept holding her phone up, trying to catch a signal. "Relax," I told her. "The world won't end if you're offline for a few hours." "You don't understand," she snapped. "I have important things to handle." "More important than spending time with your family?" She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not guilt, not embarrassment. Something colder. Some things are more important than pretending everything is fine when it's not. The girls had gone quiet in the back seat. Even with their earbuds in, they could feel the tension. "What's that supposed to mean?" I asked. Rachel turned away. "Nothing. Forget I said anything." But I wouldn't forget. I was filing away every word, every expression, every tell. because whatever Rachel and her friend Dee were planning, I was going to be ready for it. The attack came without warning. One moment we were driving through a peaceful stretch of forest road, and the next, a battered sedan came roaring up behind us, engine screaming. It rammed into our rear bumper hard enough to throw us all forward against our seatbelts. What the hell? I fought to keep control as the sedan backed off, then accelerated again. Dad! Mia screamed. The second impact sent us sliding sideways. I yanked the wheel left, tires squealing as we skidded toward the guardrail. The drop beyond it had to be 50 feet, straight down into a rocky ravine. The sedan pulled alongside us, and through the driver's window, I saw a man's face twisted with rage. He was shouting something I couldn't hear over the roar of engines and my daughter's screams. Then he did something that made my stomach turn to ice. He held up a gun. I slammed on the brakes. Our minivan skidded to a stop as the sedan shot past us, then spun around in a cloud of burning rubber. It came to rest blocking the road ahead, and the driver got out. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with the kind of build that came from expensive gym memberships. His face was red with anger, and he was pointing the gun directly at our windshield. "Get out!" he screamed. "Get out of the car right now!" Rachel had gone completely white. She was staring at the man like she'd seen a ghost. "Girls, get down," I said quietly. "Get on the floor and stay there." "Dad, what's happening?" Ellie's voice was small, scared. "Just do what I say." The man with the gun was walking toward us now, his weapon trained on me through the windshield. When he got close enough, I could see his face clearly. He was handsome in that generic corporate way, probably mid-30s, with perfect teeth and a tan that came from weekend golf games. The kind of guy who drove a BMW and wore expensive cologne. The kind of guy who might seduce someone else's wife. "You bastard," he shouted. "You think you can keep her from me? Get out of that car." Rachel was shaking now, her hands pressed against her mouth. "Rachel," I said quietly, "do you know this man?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Is this Dee?" Another nod. The man, Derek, I assumed, had reached the driver's side door. He pressed the gun against the window. "I said get out. I'm taking Rachel with me, and there's nothing you can do to stop it." I looked at my daughters, huddled on the floor of the back seat, terrified and confused. I looked at my wife, who was crying but making no move to stop this madness. Then I smiled, because Derek had just made a very big mistake. He'd revealed himself, shown me exactly who I was dealing with, and more importantly, he'd done it in front of witnesses, with my daughter's safety at stake. The game had changed. This wasn't about a marriage anymore. This was war. I stepped out of the minivan slowly, hands visible, playing the part of the terrified husband. Derek kept the gun trained on me, his face flushed with adrenaline and whatever delusion had convinced him that armed kidnapping was a reasonable solution to his problems. "That's right," he said. "Nice and easy. Rachel, get out. We're leaving." "Derek, no," Rachel said through the open door. "Not like this. Not in front of the girls." "The girls will be fine. Their daddy will take good care of them." Derek's smile was ugly. "Won't you, Tom?" He knew my name. Of course he did. Rachel had probably told him everything about our life, our routines, our problems. I wondered how long they'd been planning this moment. "Please," I said, letting my voice shake. "Don't hurt my family. If you want Rachel, just take her. But let me get the girls somewhere safe first." Derek laughed. "You think you're in a position to negotiate? Rachel belongs with me. She never belonged with you." Rachel climbed out of the passenger side, moving like she was in a trance. She looked at me across the roof of the minivan, and I saw something that might have been regret in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't apologize to him," Derek snapped. "He never deserved you anyway." While Derek was focused on Rachel, I palmed the small GPS tracker I kept in my work jacket. It was the kind I used to keep track of my service van, about the size of a quarter and magnetic. I'd started carrying it everywhere after a string of break-ins in our neighborhood. "You're making a mistake," I told Derek. "This isn't how you solve problems." "The only mistake was Rachel staying with you as long as she did." Derek gestured with the gun. "Back away from the car." I raised my hands and took a step back, then another. Derek moved closer, keeping the weapon pointed at my chest. When he was close enough, I stumbled deliberately, bumping into him. Sorry, I said, steadying myself against his shoulder. The tracker stuck to the inside of his jacket collar like it was meant to be there. Derek shoved me away, too focused on his grand romantic gesture to notice. "Rachel, come on, we're leaving." Rachel walked around the car like she was sleepwalking. When she reached Derek, he wrapped his free arm around her waist, pulling her close. "This is what love looks like," he told me. "Not whatever pathetic arrangement you two had." "Mom?" Mia's voice came from inside the minivan, small and frightened. "Mom, don't go." Rachel's composure cracked. She looked toward the car, then back at Derek. "Maybe we should—" "No," Derek said firmly. "We're done with maybe. Get in the car." He dragged her toward his sedan, guns still trained on me. I stayed where I was, playing the helpless victim while my mind raced through possibilities. The tracker would let me find them. But first, I had to make sure my daughters were safe. Derek shoved Rachel into the passenger seat, then back toward the driver's side, keeping the gun on me until the last moment. The sedan's engine roared to life, and they disappeared around the next curve, leaving us alone on the empty mountain road. I stood there for a moment, listening to the silence. Then I heard Ellie's voice from the back seat. "Dad? Is it safe to come up now?" "Yeah, sweetheart. It's safe." Both girls emerged from the floor, shaken but unharmed. Mia was crying, and Ellie was trying to comfort her while fighting back her own tears. "Where did Mom go?" Mia asked. "Why did that man have a gun?" I knelt beside the open door, pulling both girls into a hug. "I don't know exactly what's happening yet," I said. "But I promise you, I'm going to bring your mother back." "Should we call the police?" Ellie asked. "Yes. But first, I need to make sure you two are somewhere safe." I drove us to the nearest town, a place called Ticonderoga that looked like it hadn't changed much since the Revolutionary War. The police station was a small brick building next to the fire department, staffed by a single officer who looked like he was counting the days until retirement. "Let me get this straight," Officer Martinez said, looking up from his notepad. "Your wife was kidnapped by her lover?" "That's right." "And you have no idea where they went?" I shrugged. They could be anywhere by now. Martinez frowned. "This is unusual. Most kidnappings aren't quite so voluntary on the victim's part." "My wife seemed scared," I said. "The man had a gun. She didn't have a choice." It wasn't entirely a lie. Rachel had seemed scared, though whether of Derek or of the situation spiraling out of control, I couldn't say. "We'll put out a bolo alert," Martinez said. "Description of the vehicle, the suspect. But I have to tell you, if they cross state lines, this becomes a federal matter." "I understand." Martinez gave me his card and promised to call if they learned anything. Then I collected my daughters and drove to the nearest motel, a rundown place called the Pine View that probably hadn't seen new carpet since the Carter administration. The room had 2 beds and a view of the parking lot. I got the girls settled with pizza and cable TV, then stepped outside to make some calls. First, I activated the tracking app on my phone. The GPS signal from Derek's jacket showed up immediately, a blinking dot about 30 miles north of our location. They were stationary, probably holed up somewhere for the night. Next, I called Pete. "Tom? Thank God. I've been worried sick since you called earlier." "It's worse than I thought," I said. "Rachel's gone." "Gone? What do you mean gone?" I gave him the abbreviated version. The affair, the ambush, Derek's gun. Pete listened without interrupting, which was one of the many reasons we'd been friends for 25 years. Jesus, Tom. Are the girls okay? Physically, yes. Emotionally, we'll see. What do you need me to do? I need you to do some digging. The guy's name is Derek Stiles. Probably works in insurance, drives a beat-up sedan, license plate. I gave him the number I'd memorized during the confrontation. I'll see what I can find out. And Pete? If something happens to me, make sure my girls are taken care of. Nothing's going to happen to you, but yeah, you know I will. I hung up and checked the tracker again. Still stationary. Whatever Derek had planned, he was taking his time. Back in the motel room, the girls were watching a movie, but I could tell their hearts weren't in it. Ellie kept glancing at the door like she expected Rachel to walk through it. Mia was curled up in a ball, clutching a pillow. "Dad?" Mia said. "Is Mom coming back?" "I don't know, sweetheart. I hope so." "But what if she doesn't want to?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut, partly because I'd been wondering the same thing. Rachel had gone with Derek, gun or no gun. She could have refused, could have fought, could have chosen her family over whatever fantasy she'd been living. Instead, she'd apologized and left. "Your mother loves you both very much," I said. "Whatever's happening between her and me, that hasn't changed." Ellie gave me a look that was far too adult for a 16-year-old. "Dad, we're not stupid. Mom's been weird for months, and that guy knew her name. Ellie, I'm just saying, if Mom chose to leave, we'll be okay. We have you." I sat down on the bed between them, pulling both girls close. "Nobody's choosing anything right now," I said. "We're going to figure this out together." But even as I said it, I was planning. Derek had made this personal when he threatened my daughters. Rachel had made it personal when she chose him over us. And now they were both going to learn what happened when you backed a man into a corner with nothing left to lose. My phone buzzed with a text from Pete. "Found him. Derek Stiles, 39, works for Adirondack Insurance, married, 2 kids, address attached. You want me to keep digging?" I stared at the message. Married with kids. So Derek wasn't just destroying my family, he was destroying his own. I typed back, "Keep digging. I want to know everything." The tracker showed Derek and Rachel were still at the same location, a spot that Google Maps identified as near a lake about an hour's drive north. They'd probably found a cabin or a motel, somewhere they thought they could hide while they figured out their next move. They were wrong about the hiding part. I waited until the girls were asleep, then slipped out of the room. The drive to Derek's location took me through winding mountain roads, past dark lakes and dense forests. The tracker led me to a small lakeside cabin, isolated and perfect for a romantic getaway. Or a kidnapping. Derek's sedan was parked in the driveway. Lights were on in the cabin's front windows, and I could see shadows moving inside. I parked a quarter-mile away and approached on foot, using the tree line for cover. Through the front window, I could see Rachel and Derek in what looked like an argument. She was gesturing frantically while he stood with his arms crossed. Even from a distance, I could read their body language. This wasn't going according to plan. I circled the cabin, looking for other windows, other angles. In the back bedroom, I hit the jackpot. Derek had left a laptop open on the bed, and scattered around it were papers, photographs, and what looked like love letters. The window was unlocked. I slipped inside, moving as quietly as possible. The argument in the front room was getting louder, which helped cover any noise I might make. I took photos of everything with my phone. Emails between Rachel and Derek, hotel receipts, even a handwritten note from Rachel that made my stomach turn. "I can't wait to start our real life together," it read. "Tom will never understand what we have." But the real treasure was Derek's laptop. He'd left his email open, and his password was saved in the browser. I plugged in a USB drive and started copying files. What I found was even worse than I'd expected. Derek hadn't just been having an affair with my wife. He'd been planning to destroy me. There were emails about my business, my finances, even my relationship with my daughters. Rachel had been feeding him information for months, helping him build a case for why she deserved everything in a divorce. They'd been planning to frame me as an unfit father. I copied everything, then slipped back out the window. As I made my way back to the car, I could hear their argument escalating. Something about the plan and what happens now, and you said he wouldn't fight back. They were right about one thing. The old Tom wouldn't have fought back. The old Tom would have been devastated, would have rolled over and let them take whatever they wanted. But the old Tom hadn't watched a man point a gun at his daughters. I drove back to the motel, my mind already working through the possibilities. Derek and Rachel thought they held all the cards, thought they could destroy my life and walk away clean. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The next morning brought chaos, exactly as I'd hoped it would. I'd been up since 4 a.m., making phone calls and sending carefully crafted messages from untraceable email accounts. By the time the girls woke up, Derek's world was already beginning to crumble. My phone rang at 7:30, unknown number. "Hello? You bastard!" Derek's voice was raw with fury. "What did you do?" "I'm sorry, who is this?" "You know damn well who this is. My wife just threw me out of the house. My boss is asking questions about my expense reports. What the hell did you send them?" I stepped outside the motel room, closing the door behind me. The girls didn't need to hear this conversation. "I sent them the truth," I said. Amazing how much damage that can do. "You're going to regret this. I still have Rachel. I can make her disappear completely." "No, Derek, you can't. Because Rachel's going to realize very soon that you're not the man she thought you were. And when she does, she's going to come crawling back to me, begging for forgiveness. Like hell she will. We'll see." I hung up and went back inside. Ellie was awake, scrolling through her phone with a frown. "Dad? There's weird stuff on social media about Mom." My stomach dropped. "What kind of weird stuff?" She showed me her screen. Someone had posted in our neighborhood Facebook group a message with the subject line, "Cheating Wife Alert." The post was anonymous, but it contained details that were unmistakably about Rachel. Her workplace, her car, even a description that could only be her. Worse, it included photos. Rachel and Derek together at a restaurant, kissing in a parking lot, entering a hotel. "This is horrible," Ellie said. "Who would do this?" I had a pretty good idea, but I kept my expression neutral. Probably someone who thinks they're helping. People do stupid things when they're angry. But now everyone's going to know. All our neighbors, our friends. Hey. I sat down beside her. "Whatever happens between your mother and me, it's not your fault or your responsibility. People will gossip for a while, then they'll move on to something else." Mia emerged from the bathroom, already dressed. "Can we go home now? I don't like it here." "Soon," I said. "I just need to take care of a few things first." My phone rang again. This time it was Rachel. "Tom, please, you have to stop this." "Stop what?" "You know what? The emails, the photos, whatever you're doing to Derek's job, this isn't like you." "You're right," I said. "The old me would have just rolled over and let you two destroy my life. But that man is gone. Derek didn't kidnap me. I went with him willingly. At gunpoint, in front of our daughters. He was emotional. He wouldn't have hurt anyone." "Are you listening to yourself? You're defending a man who threatened our children." There was a long pause. When Rachel spoke again, her voice was smaller. "I never meant for it to happen this way." "But you meant for it to happen. That's what matters. Tom, please, can we talk? Just the two of us?" "Where's Derek?" He left. After his wife called this morning, he said he needed to think. So Derek had abandoned her at the first sign of real consequences. I almost felt sorry for Rachel. Almost. "Come home," I said. "We'll talk there." "Okay, I'll be there this afternoon." I hung up and started packing our things. The girls were quiet during the drive home, lost in their own thoughts. I used the time to make more phone calls, setting the next phase of my plan in motion. By the time we pulled into our driveway, I'd already changed the locks. Rachel's car was parked on the street, and she was sitting on the front porch steps. She looked terrible. Hair unwashed, clothes wrinkled, makeup smeared. When she saw us, she stood up hopefully. "Girls," she called out. "I'm so sorry about yesterday. That man was your boyfriend," Ellie said coldly. "We're not stupid, Mom." Rachel's face crumpled. "Ellie, please. Let me explain." "Explain what? How you were going to leave us? How you let some guy point a gun at Dad?" "It wasn't supposed to happen like that." "But it did happen like that," I said, getting out of the car. "And now we all have to live with the consequences." Rachel tried to follow us to the front door, but her key didn't work. She stood there, confused, trying it again. "Tom, my key doesn't fit. I changed the locks. You can't keep me out of my own house. Actually, I can. The house is in my name. You left voluntarily, and after yesterday's little performance, I have reasonable concerns about the safety of my children." "Our children? Are they? Because yesterday, it seemed like Derek was more important to you than they were." Rachel started crying then, the kind of ugly sobs that come from genuine despair. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to let her inside and pretend none of this had happened. That part was getting smaller every day. "Please," she said, "I made a mistake. I know that now. Derek isn't who I thought he was." What gave it away? The gun? The threats? Or the fact that he ran away the minute his own life got complicated? All of it. I was confused, I was unhappy, and he made me feel special. But I never stopped loving you and the girls. You have a funny way of showing love. The neighbors were starting to notice the drama unfolding on our front lawn. Mrs. Henderson from across the street was pretending to water her garden while obviously eavesdropping. The Johnsons' curtains twitched every few seconds. Perfect. Let them all see what Rachel had done to our family. "Can we at least go inside to talk?" Rachel asked. "Please?" "No, you made your choice. Now you get to live with it." I ushered the girls inside, leaving Rachel on the porch. Through the window, I watched her sit back down on the steps, head in her hands. My phone buzzed with a text from Pete. "Derek's in deep trouble. Wife filed for divorce this morning. Boss put him on administrative leave pending investigation. You want me to keep the pressure on?" I typed back, "Not yet. Let him stew for a while." Over the next few hours, I watched Rachel through the window. She made phone calls, probably trying to reach Derek or find somewhere to stay. She knocked on the door several times, begging to be let in. The neighbors continued their not-so-subtle surveillance. Around dinner time, Tasha showed up, Rachel's best friend and partner in crime, the one who'd probably been covering for the affair all along. I watched them have an animated conversation on the porch, Tasha gesturing wildly while Rachel cried. Then Tasha marched up to the front door and started pounding on it. "Tom, open this door right now." I opened it but kept the chain lock engaged. "What can I do for you, Tasha?" "You can stop being a vindictive jerk and let your wife come home." "My wife chose to leave, with another man, at gunpoint, in front of my children. That's not how it happened." "Were you there?" Tasha's face flushed. "Rachel told me what really happened. Derek was just trying to help her get away from you." "Help her get away from me? With a gun?" "You're twisting everything around." "Am I? Then explain to me why Rachel has been lying to me for months. Explain the hotel receipts, the secret phone calls, the love letters." Tasha's mouth opened and closed like a fish. She hadn't expected me to have evidence. "People make mistakes," she said finally. "Yes, they do. And then they face the consequences." I closed the door and went back to the kitchen, where the girls were picking at their takeout Chinese food. Neither of them had much appetite, which was understandable. Their world had been turned upside down in less than 24 hours. "Dad," Mia said, "are you and Mom getting divorced?" "I don't know yet, sweetheart. We have a lot to figure out." "Good," Ellie said. "She doesn't deserve you." "Ellie, I'm serious. She's been acting weird for months, lying to us, sneaking around, and then she leaves us for some psycho with a gun. She made her choice. She's still your mother. Biologically, maybe, but mothers don't abandon their children for their boyfriends. I couldn't argue with that logic. Rachel had made her priorities clear, and we weren't at the top of the list. My phone rang. Derek again. "What now?" I answered. "This has to stop. You're destroying innocent people." "Innocent people? Like my daughters, who watched you threaten their father with a gun?" "I wasn't going to hurt anyone. I just wanted Rachel to be free." "Free to do what? Abandon her children? Help you commit felonies?" "You don't understand what we have." "I understand perfectly. You have a fantasy built on lies and selfishness, and now reality is setting in. Rachel loves me." "Where is she right now, Derek?" Silence. "She's sitting on my front porch crying because the man she threw her life away for abandoned her the minute things got difficult. That's your great love story." "I'm trying to protect her." "From what? The consequences of her own actions?" "From you. You're vindictive and controlling." I laughed. "Yesterday you thought I was pathetic and weak. Today I'm vindictive and controlling. Make up your mind." "You won't get away with this." "Get away with what? Telling the truth? Protecting my children? Fighting for my family?" "You'll regret this. The only thing I regret is not seeing what Rachel really was years ago." I hung up and blocked his number. Whatever Derek was planning next, I'd be ready for it. Outside, Rachel and Tasha were still on the porch, their conversation getting more heated. I could hear raised voices, though not the specific words. Finally, Tasha stormed off, leaving Rachel alone again. She stayed there until after midnight, curled up on the porch swing like a lost child. Part of me wanted to bring her a blanket, but I resisted the impulse. Rachel had made her bed, literally, with Derek, and now she could lie in it. The next morning, she was gone. I woke up to find Rachel's car missing from the street and a legal document taped to my front door. The papers were from a downtown law firm I'd never heard of, informing me that my wife was seeking an emergency restraining order based on harassment, intimidation, and threats to her safety. The irony was almost funny. The woman who'd run off with an armed man was now claiming I was the dangerous one. "Dad?" Ellie appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in her pajamas. "There's a cop car outside." Through the window, I could see a patrol car parked at the curb. The officer behind the wheel was talking on his radio, probably running my address through whatever database cops use to check for domestic disputes. My phone rang. The caller ID showed the name of Rachel's new lawyer. "Mr. Ferris, this is Janet Morrison from Morrison & Associates. I represent your wife." "Good for you." "I'm calling to inform you that we've filed for an emergency restraining order. You're not to contact Mrs. Ferris in any way, directly or indirectly." "Let me guess. She's claiming I'm stalking her?" "Among other things, yes. The anonymous harassment campaign, the invasion of her privacy, the threats." "What threats?" "The threatening phone calls to Mr. Stiles." I almost laughed out loud. "You mean the phone calls where I told him to stop pointing guns at my children? Those threats?" There was a pause. "Mr. Ferris, I'd advise you to retain counsel immediately. This situation is escalating rapidly." "You're right about that." I hung up and went outside to talk to the police officer. He was young, probably new to the force, and he looked uncomfortable with the whole situation. "Mr. Ferris, I'm Officer Walsh. I need to ask you a few questions about an incident involving your wife." "Which incident? The one where her boyfriend kidnapped her at gunpoint? Or the one where she abandoned her children for said boyfriend?" Walsh consulted his notepad. "Your wife claims you've been harassing her and her friend, making threatening phone calls, posting private information online, interfering with their relationship." "Officer, do you have children?" "Yes, sir. 2 daughters." Then maybe you can understand why I might be upset when a man points a gun at my family and drives off with my wife. Your wife says she went willingly. At gunpoint, in front of my children, I have witnesses. Walsh looked confused. That's not what the report says. Then the report is wrong. Would you like to speak to my daughters? They saw the whole thing. Let me make some phone calls. While Walsh sat in his car, presumably trying to figure out which version of events was true, I called my own lawyer. Jim Bradley had handled the purchase of our house and a few business contracts over the years. He wasn't a family law specialist, but he was smart and aggressive when he needed to be. Tom, I heard about Rachel. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry yet. I need your help. What kind of help? I gave him the abbreviated version of the last few days, including the restraining order and the police visit. Jim listened without interrupting, which I appreciated. This is messy, he said when I finished, but not impossible. The good news is that if Derek really did threaten you with a weapon, that's a felony. The bad news is that it sounds like Rachel is going to claim it never happened. I have witnesses. My daughters saw everything. That helps. But courts don't like putting children in the middle of these situations. The children are already in the middle. Rachel put them there when she chose Derek over her family. I understand your anger, Tom, but we need to be smart about this. If you keep pushing, Rachel's going to paint you as the aggressor. Let her try. I have evidence of the affair, the planning, everything. She's not the victim here. Evidence obtained how? I hesitated. Does it matter? It might. If you broke any laws gathering this information, it could be inadmissible. I didn't break any laws. Not technically, anyway. Derek had left his window unlocked and his computer unattended. If that wasn't an invitation, it was at least an opportunity. Officer Walsh returned, looking even more uncomfortable than before. Mr. Ferris, I spoke to my supervisor. Given the conflicting accounts, we're going to need formal statements from everyone involved. Including Derek Stiles? Yes, sir. If you could ask your daughters to come outside, I'd like to speak with them briefly. I called the girls out, and they gave Walsh their version of events. Both were clear and consistent. Derek had forced our car off the road, threatened us with a gun, and driven away with their mother. Walsh took notes, his frown deepening with each detail. This is very different from what Mrs. Ferris reported, he said when they finished. Maybe you should ask Mrs. Ferris why she lied, Ellie said. Ellie, I warned. I'm just saying, Mom's been lying about a lot of things lately. Walsh closed his notepad. Mr. Ferris, I'm going to recommend that the restraining order be reviewed. Based on what your daughters have told me, it sounds like you were the victim of a crime, not the perpetrator. Thank you. But I'd still advise you to be careful. Domestic situations can escalate quickly, and everyone involved usually gets hurt. After Walsh left, I spent the rest of the morning on the phone with Jim, planning our legal strategy. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for the following afternoon, which gave us less than 24 hours to prepare. I need everything you have, Jim said. Emails, photos, financial records, phone logs. If Rachel wants to play hardball, we'll give her a game she won't forget. What about Derek? Can we go after him criminally? Absolutely. Using a dangerous weapon, unlawful abduction, reckless endangerment. The DA will have plenty to work with. Good. Tom, I have to ask, are you sure you want to go this route? Once we file these charges, there's no going back. Rachel will be forced to choose between her boyfriend and her freedom. She already made her choice. That afternoon, I got a call from Detective Martinez, the same officer who'd taken my initial report in Ticonderoga. Mr. Ferris, we've been investigating the incident you reported. I have some questions about your wife's whereabouts that night. What kind of questions? Well, we found the cabin where you said they were staying. The owner confirmed that a man and woman matching your description rented it for one night. But here's the interesting part. They checked out separately. Separately? The man left around midnight, alone. The woman didn't leave until the next morning, and according to the owner, she seemed upset. So Derek had abandoned Rachel in the middle of the night, probably after his wife called him. The great romantic gesture had lasted less than 12 hours. Detective, I need to ask you something. My wife is claiming I harassed her and her boyfriend, but based on what you just told me, it sounds like he abandoned her. That's not for me to say, Mr. Ferris, but I will tell you that we're taking the weapons charge very seriously. Pointing a gun at a family with children crosses a line. Will you testify to that at the restraining order hearing? If subpoenaed, yes. I called Jim immediately and gave him Martinez's contact information. Things were looking up. The hearing was held in a cramped courtroom that smelled like old coffee and broken dreams. Rachel sat at the plaintiff's table with her lawyer, looking pale and nervous. She was wearing a conservative dress and minimal makeup, probably trying to project an image of vulnerable innocence. Derek was nowhere to be seen. Judge Patricia Hoffman looked like she'd been handling domestic disputes since before I was born. She had the weary expression of someone who'd seen every possible variation of human stupidity and wasn't impressed by any of it. Mrs. Morrison, she said to Rachel's lawyer, present your case. Morrison stood up, consulting her notes. Your Honor, my client has been subjected to a campaign of harassment and intimidation by her estranged husband. He's posted private information about her online, made threatening phone calls to her friend, and generally made her life a living hell. Mr. Bradley? Judge Hoffman looked at my lawyer. Jim stood up, holding a thick folder. Your Honor, this case isn't about harassment. It's about a woman who abandoned her children to run off with a man who threatened her family at gunpoint. Objection, Morrison said. There's no evidence of any weapon. Actually, there is. Jim opened his folder. I have statements from 2 minor children who witnessed the entire incident, as well as a police report from Detective Martinez of the Ticonderoga Police Department. Judge Hoffman held up her hand. Let's start from the beginning. Mrs. Ferris, tell me in your own words what happened. Rachel stood up, her voice shaky. Your Honor, my husband has been emotionally abusive for years. When I finally found the courage to leave him, he began a campaign of harassment designed to destroy my reputation and force me to come back. And this alleged harassment included what, specifically? Anonymous posts on social media, threatening phone calls, invasion of privacy. He even broke into my friend's cabin and stole personal items. Judge Hoffman looked at me. Mr. Ferris, did you break into anyone's cabin? I stood up. No, Your Honor, I did not. Did you post information about your wife online? No, Your Honor, I did not. Did you make threatening phone calls? I spoke to Derek Stiles twice. Both times I told him to stay away from my family. I don't consider that threatening. Who is Derek Stiles? Jim stepped forward. Your Honor, Derek Stiles is the man who forced Mr. Ferris's car off the road at gunpoint and drove away with Mrs. Ferris. We have witness statements and a police report documenting the incident. Morrison jumped up. Objection. Mr. Stiles was helping my client escape an abusive situation. By pointing a gun at children? Judge Hoffman's voice was sharp. Mrs. Morrison, I suggest you choose your words more carefully. The hearing continued for another hour, with both sides presenting evidence and testimony. Detective Martinez appeared by phone to confirm the details of Derek's assault. My daughters, bless them, were clear and consistent in their statements. The turning point came when Jim presented the emails I'd copied from Derek's laptop. Rachel's lawyer objected to their admissibility, but Jim argued that they were relevant to establishing Rachel's state of mind and voluntary departure. Your Honor, Jim said, these emails show months of planning between Mrs. Ferris and Mr. Stiles. They discuss strategies for leaving Mr. Ferris, taking the children, and even destroying his business. This wasn't a spontaneous escape from abuse. It was a calculated betrayal. Judge Hoffman read through the emails, her expression growing darker with each page. Mrs. Ferris, she said finally. Did you write these emails? Rachel looked at her lawyer, who nodded reluctantly. Yes, Your Honor, but they're taken out of context. What context would make this acceptable? Judge Hoffman held up one of the emails. You wrote, Tom will never see the girls again once we're together. Derek says he knows people who can make sure of that. What did you mean by that? Rachel burst into tears. I was angry. I wasn't thinking clearly. You were planning to kidnap your own children. No, I would never. Mrs. Morrison, I've heard enough. The restraining order is denied. Furthermore, I'm ordering an immediate custody evaluation and recommending that the district attorney review this case for possible criminal charges. Rachel collapsed into her chair, sobbing. Her lawyer was already packing up her briefcase, probably calculating how quickly she could distance herself from this disaster. Judge Hoffman turned to me. Mr. Ferris, I'm granting you temporary custody of your daughters pending the evaluation. Mrs. Ferris will be allowed supervised visitation only. Thank you, Your Honor. Don't thank me yet. This situation is far from over. Outside the courthouse, Rachel tried to approach me, but her lawyer pulled her away. Through the car window, I could see her mouth the words, I'm sorry. Too little, too late. Jim walked me to my car, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. That went better than I expected, he said. Judge Hoffman doesn't suffer fools, and she clearly saw through Rachel's act. What happens now? Now we wait for the custody evaluation and see if the DA decides to prosecute. In the meantime, you keep being the good father you've always been, and let Rachel dig her own grave. What about Derek? What about him? He's facing felony charges and his own divorce. I doubt he'll be much help to Rachel going forward. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This isn't over. I showed it to Jim, who shook his head. Some people never learn, he said. Forward that to Detective Martinez. If Derek wants to keep making threats, we'll keep building the case against him. I drove home feeling cautiously optimistic for the first time in days. The legal system had worked, at least partially. Rachel's lies had been exposed, and my daughters were safe. But I knew Derek well enough by now to take his threats seriously. He'd already shown he was willing to use violence to get what he wanted. The question was, what would he try next? The answer came sooner than I expected. I woke up at 3 a.m. to the sound of breaking glass. The security system I'd installed after changing the locks was shrieking, and red lights were flashing in the hallway. Through my bedroom window, I could see a figure running across the backyard. Derek. I grabbed the baseball bat I'd started keeping beside the bed and crept downstairs. The back door was intact, but the kitchen window had a brick-sized hole in it. Glass covered the floor, and a rock sat in the middle of the mess with a note wrapped around it. Give me back my life or I'll take yours. Real original, Derek. Real subtle. The girls appeared at the top of the stairs, both wide-eyed and frightened. Dad? What happened? Someone threw a rock through the window. It's okay, they're gone now. Was it Mom's boyfriend? Out of the mouths of babes. Probably. But don't worry. He's just trying to scare us. Is it working? I looked at my 16-year-old daughter, standing there in her pajamas, trying to be brave while her world fell apart around her. No, sweetheart, it's not working. But privately, I was furious. Derek had crossed a line by coming to my house, threatening my family on our own property. The gloves were officially off. I called 911 first, then Detective Martinez. The local cops arrived within minutes, followed by a crime scene photographer who documented everything. Martinez showed up an hour later, looking like he'd been roused from bed. This escalates things, he said, examining the rock and note. Breaking and entering, vandalism, criminal threats. We can probably get a warrant for his arrest. Good. Mr. Ferris, I have to ask. Are you sure you want to keep pushing this? Some people think it might be better to let sleeping dogs lie. What people? People who think you might be better off without a wife who'd cheat on you and abandon her children. I stared at him, Detective, are you suggesting I should just let my wife's boyfriend terrorize my family? I'm suggesting that sometimes the best revenge is living well. And sometimes the best revenge is making sure the bad guys face consequences for their actions. Martinez nodded. Fair enough. We'll pick up Derek Stiles this morning. After the police left, I spent the rest of the night cleaning up glass and boarding up the window. The girls helped, both of them unusually quiet. Finally, Ellie broke the silence. Dad, are we safe here? Yes, I promise. But what if he comes back? Then he'll regret it. I meant it. Derek had made this personal when he threatened my children. If he wanted a war, he'd get one. The next morning brought news that Derek had been arrested at his apartment, along with evidence linking him to the break-in. Apparently, he'd cut himself climbing through our backyard fence, leaving a trail of his genetic material for the crime scene team to collect. Not the brightest criminal mastermind. But the real surprise came when Rachel called, crying hysterically. Tom, please, you have to drop the charges against Derek. Why would I do that? Because I love him, and because this is destroying both our families. Rachel, he threw a rock through our window. He threatened to take my life. He's just scared and desperate. You've ruined everything for him. I've ruined everything? He's the one who pointed a gun at our children. That was a mistake. He never meant to hurt anyone. Then he should have thought about that before he decided to play with weapons. There was a long pause. What do you want from me, Tom? What will it take for you to stop this? I want you to choose. Choose what? Your family or your boyfriend, your children or your fantasy. Make a choice and stick with it. I can't. Then I'll make it for you. I hung up and immediately called Pete. I need another favor, I said. Name it. Remember how you said Derek's wife filed for divorce? I need to know who her lawyer is. Why? Because I think she and I have some common interests. Pete got back to me within an hour. Derek's wife, Linda, was represented by a shark named Patricia Wells, who specialized in taking cheating husbands to the cleaners. I called Wells's office and arranged a meeting for that afternoon. Patricia Wells looked exactly like what Central Casting would order for a divorce lawyer. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, and an expression that suggested she could smell weakness from 3 blocks away. Mr. Ferris, she said, gesturing to a chair across from her desk. I understand you have information about Derek Stiles that might be relevant to my client's case. I do. I handed her a USB drive containing everything I'd copied from Derek's laptop. Emails with Rachel, hotel receipts, evidence of financial impropriety at his job, even photos they'd taken together. Wells plugged the drive into her computer and started scrolling through the files. Her expression grew more predatory with each document. This is very thorough, she said. Very useful. I thought it might be. Derek has been claiming that his relationship with your wife was purely emotional, that they never crossed any physical lines. These photos suggest otherwise, among other things. And these financial records, it looks like he's been using company credit cards to pay for hotel rooms and dinners with your wife. That would be fraud, wouldn't it? It would indeed. Wells leaned back in her chair. Mr. Ferris, what do you want from this arrangement? I want Derek Stiles to face the consequences of his actions, all of them. And your wife? My wife made her choice. Now she gets to live with it. Wells smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. I think we can help each other. That evening, Derek's world began collapsing in earnest. Wells had forwarded the financial evidence to Derek's employer, who immediately suspended him pending investigation. She'd also shared the photos with Derek's extended family, including his parents and siblings. By dinner time, Derek's Facebook page was flooded with angry comments from people who'd thought he was a devoted family man. My phone rang around 8 p.m. Rachel again. What did you do? She demanded. I told the truth. Derek's whole family hates him now. His job is gone. His wife is taking everything. Actions have consequences. You're destroying an innocent man. I laughed, actually laughed out loud. Innocent? Rachel, he threatened our children with a gun, broke into our house, and sent me threatening messages. What part of that sounds innocent to you? He was just trying to protect what we had. What you had was an affair built on lies and selfishness. Now it's over. It's not over. We love each other. Where is he right now? Silence. Let me guess. He's not answering your calls. He's too busy dealing with the mess his life has become to worry about you. That's not... He's abandoning you, Rachel. Again. Just like he did at the cabin, just like he'll do every time things get difficult. You don't know him like I do. I know him well enough. He's a coward who talks big, but runs when the pressure mounts, and you threw away 15 years of marriage for him. Rachel started crying, the kind of deep, hopeless sobs that come from finally seeing the truth. I made a mistake, she whispered. Yes, you did. Can you forgive me? The question hung in the air between us. Could I forgive her? Maybe, eventually. But forgiveness didn't mean forgetting, and it didn't mean pretending this hadn't happened. I don't know, I said honestly. But even if I could forgive you, I'll never trust you again. And without trust, what's the point? The point is our family, our daughters, the life we built together. You destroyed that life when you chose Derek over us. I choose you now. I choose our family. Too late. I hung up and turned off my phone. The girls were in the living room pretending to watch TV while obviously listening to my conversation. They looked at me with expressions that were far too mature for their ages. Is Mom coming home? Mia asked. I don't think so, sweetheart. Good, Ellie said. We're better off without her. Ellie, I'm serious, Dad. She made her choice and it wasn't us. Why should we give her another chance to hurt us? I sat down between them on the couch, pulling both girls close. Your mother loves you both. She made some terrible mistakes, but that doesn't change how she feels about you. If she loved us, she wouldn't have left, Mia said quietly. People are complicated, sweetheart. Sometimes they do stupid things even when they love you. Are you going to take her back? The million-dollar question. A week ago, I might have said yes. Marriage was supposed to be for better or worse, in sickness and in health. But watching a man point a gun at my children had clarified things wonderfully. No, I said. I'm not. Both girls relaxed against me, and I realized they'd been holding their breath, waiting for my answer. We're going to be okay, I told them. The three of us. We're going to be just fine. And for the first time in months, I actually believed it. The next morning brought the final piece of Derek's downfall. His employer had completed their investigation and fired him for fraud and misuse of company resources. His wife's lawyer had frozen all their joint accounts and filed for an emergency hearing to determine spousal support. Most satisfying of all, Derek had been formally charged with multiple felonies related to the road incident and the break-in at my house. His bail was set high enough that he'd probably spend the next few weeks in jail. Rachel called one last time, her voice hollow and defeated. Derek's been arrested, she said. I heard. They're saying he might go to prison. Probably. This is all your fault. And there it was. Even now, even after everything, Rachel couldn't take responsibility for her own choices. It was my fault for not rolling over and letting them destroy my life. My fault for fighting back. My fault for refusing to be a victim. No, Rachel. This is Derek's fault for making threats and committing crimes. This is your fault for choosing him over your family. But it's not my fault for protecting my children. I hate you. I know. I'll never forgive you for this. I can live with that. She hung up, and I deleted her number from my phone. Whatever we'd had was over, finished, buried under the weight of her betrayal and his violence. The girls and I had dinner that night at our favorite restaurant, the one Rachel had always complained was too loud and too casual. We laughed and joked and made plans for the weekend. For the first time in months, we felt like a family again. A smaller family, maybe. A wounded family. But a family that had survived the worst and come out stronger. As we drove home, Ellie asked the question I'd been dreading. Dad, do you think Mom will ever come back? I thought about it carefully before answering. I don't know, sweetheart. But I know that whatever happens, we'll face it together. The three of us? The three of us. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. 3 weeks later, Derek's trial began with all the fanfare of a small-town scandal that had grown legs and learned to dance. The local newspaper had picked up the story, running headlines like "Love Triangle Turns Violent" and "Local Man Charged in Family Terrorization Case." I sat in the gallery with my daughters, watching Derek in his orange jumpsuit as the prosecutor laid out the case. He looked smaller than I remembered, diminished by his circumstances and the weight of his poor choices. Rachel sat on the other side of the courtroom, alone. She'd tried to approach us before the proceedings began, but Ellie had given her such a withering look that she'd retreated to the back row. The evidence was overwhelming. GPS data from Derek's car placing him at our house during the break-in. DNA evidence from the fence he'd cut himself on. Witness testimony from my daughters about the road incident. Even Derek's own threatening text messages, which he'd apparently forgotten about until the police presented them in court. His lawyer, a public defender who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, tried to paint Derek as a man driven to desperation by love. The jury wasn't buying it. Ladies and gentlemen, the prosecutor said during closing arguments, this case isn't about love. It's about a man who thought he could take whatever he wanted, regardless of who got hurt. A man who pointed a gun at children. A man who broke into a family's home to terrorize them. That's not love. That's criminal behavior, and it deserves to be punished. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Derek's sentencing was scheduled for the following month, but the judge remanded him to custody immediately. As the bailiff led him away in shackles, he turned to look at Rachel one last time. She was crying, of course, but even from across the courtroom, I could see the moment she realized the truth. Derek wasn't coming back. Her great romance was over, finished by his own stupidity and violence. Outside the courthouse, reporters tried to interview us, but I hustled the girls to the car without comment. This wasn't about publicity or revenge anymore. It was about justice, and justice had been served. My phone rang as we drove home. Rachel. Tom, please, can we talk? About what? About us, about our family, about giving me another chance. I pulled over and put the phone on speaker so the girls could hear. Rachel, Derek is going to prison. Your boyfriend, the man you chose over your children, is a convicted felon. Do you understand that? He made mistakes. He committed crimes, multiple felonies, against our family. I know, but nothing. You stood by him. You defended him. You chose him over your own daughters, even after he threatened them with a weapon. I was confused. I wasn't thinking clearly. Ellie leaned forward from the back seat. Mom, we heard you. Ellie, sweetheart. We heard you defend him. We watched you choose him over us. And now you want to come back because he's going to jail? Rachel was crying again, but the girls were unmoved. They'd seen too much, heard too much, been hurt too deeply to fall for tears. I love you both, Rachel said. I never stopped loving you. You have a funny way of showing it, Mia said quietly. Please, give me a chance to make this right. How? I asked. How do you make this right? How do you undo the damage you've done to your daughters? How do you explain choosing a violent criminal over your own family? I can't undo it, but I can try to do better. It's too late for better, Rachel. You made your choice, and now you get to live with it. I hung up and turned off the phone. The girls were quiet for a moment, processing everything they'd heard. Dad? Mia said finally. Are we bad people for not wanting her back? No, sweetheart. You're not bad people. You're people who've been hurt, and you have every right to protect yourselves. But she's our mom. She is, and she always will be. But being someone's mother doesn't give you the right to hurt them without consequences. We drove home in contemplative silence. The house felt different now, lighter somehow. The shadow of Derek's threats and Rachel's betrayal had been lifted by the jury's verdict. That evening, I made the girls their favorite dinner, homemade pizza with way too much cheese, and we watched movies until late. Normal family stuff, the kind of evening we hadn't had in months. As I tucked Mia into bed, she asked the question I'd been expecting. Dad? What happens now? Now we move forward. We build a new life, just the three of us. Will you ever get married again? I considered the question seriously. Maybe someday, if I meet someone who loves you girls as much as I do. And who won't run off with criminals. I laughed despite myself. That would definitely be a requirement. Ellie was still awake when I checked on her, staring at the ceiling with the kind of expression that meant she was thinking deep thoughts. What's on your mind, kiddo? I keep thinking about what Mom said, about being confused and not thinking clearly. What about it? I get being confused. I get making mistakes. But pointing a gun at your own children isn't a mistake. It's a choice. You're right. And choosing the person who did that over the people he threatened? That's not confusion. That's just wrong. My 16-year-old daughter had summed up the entire situation with more clarity than a team of lawyers and therapists. Rachel hadn't been confused or manipulated or temporarily insane. She'd made a series of deliberate choices, each one prioritizing her fantasy over her family's reality. I'm proud of you, I told Ellie, both of you, for being strong, for being smart, for seeing the truth even when it hurt. We learned from the best. Your mother taught you a lot of good things too, before all this happened. Maybe. But you taught us that actions have consequences, that you don't abandon the people who love you, that family means something. I kissed her forehead and turned out the light. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's a new day. Dad? Thank you. For what? For fighting for us. For not giving up. For showing us what a real parent looks like. I closed her door and walked downstairs, my chest tight with emotion. The last few weeks had been hell, but they'd also shown me what really mattered. Not the marriage I'd lost, but the daughters I'd protected. Not the wife who'd betrayed me, but the family I'd saved. My phone buzzed with a text from Pete. Saw the news about Derek's conviction. How are you holding up? I typed back. Better than I expected. The girls and I are going to be fine. Good. You deserve happiness after all this. I'm already happy. Maybe not the way I planned, but happy. And it was true. Sitting in my living room, knowing my daughters were safe upstairs, knowing that the threats were over and justice had been served, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. Rachel had made her choice, and Derek had made his. Now they could both live with the consequences, while my girls and I built something better from the wreckage they'd left behind. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. Through the peephole, I could see Rachel standing on the porch, looking small and defeated. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. What do you want, Rachel? I want to apologize, to you and the girls. Okay, apologize. She seemed surprised that I wasn't going to make this easy for her. I'm sorry for the affair. I'm sorry for leaving with Derek. I'm sorry for defending him when I should have been protecting our daughters. Is that it? I'm sorry for everything, for breaking our family, for hurting the girls, for throwing away 15 years of marriage. Okay? Okay? That's all you have to say? What did you expect, Rachel? Did you think saying sorry would magically fix everything? I hoped. You hoped I'd take you back. You hoped the girls would forgive you. You hoped you could pretend this never happened. Can't we at least try? No. The word hung between us like a wall. Final, absolute, non-negotiable. The girls need their mother. The girls need stability, safety, and people they can trust. You've proven you can't provide any of those things. I've changed. Have you? Or are you just sorry you got caught? Sorry Derek turned out to be exactly what I said he was? Sorry your great romance ended with him in prison? Rachel's face crumpled. You're right. I'm sorry I got caught. I'm sorry Derek wasn't who I thought he was. I'm sorry everything fell apart. But are you sorry you had the affair in the first place? Are you sorry you chose him over your family? She was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Then we have nothing to talk about. I started to close the door, but she put her hand against it. Tom, please, I have nowhere else to go. That's not my problem anymore. I'm still your wife. Not for long. My lawyer is filing divorce papers tomorrow. You can't take the girls from me. I'm not taking them from you. You gave them up when you chose Derek over them. The custody evaluation made that clear. Rachel had indeed lost primary custody after the evaluator interviewed everyone involved. The psychologist's report had been scathing, describing Rachel as emotionally unstable and unable to prioritize her children's welfare over her own desires. I'll fight it. With what lawyer? With what money? Derek's legal bills cleaned out your savings, and you lost your job when the affair became public. She stared at me, finally understanding the full scope of what she'd lost. Not just her marriage, but her children, her financial security, her reputation, her future. I hate you, she whispered. I know, but your hatred can't change what you did or undo the consequences. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Derek's in prison. You're alone and broke. The girls want nothing to do with you. It's over, Rachel. You lost. I closed the door and locked it, then watched through the window as she stood on the porch for several minutes, crying. Eventually, she walked away, disappearing into the darkness like the shadow she'd become in our lives. Upstairs, I could hear the girls talking quietly in Ellie's room. They'd probably heard the entire conversation, but that was okay. They needed to understand that some choices couldn't be undone, some damage couldn't be repaired. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat in my favorite chair, looking around the living room. Tomorrow, I'd start the divorce proceedings. Next week, I'd meet with a contractor about renovating the kitchen, making the house truly ours. Next month, the girls and I would take a vacation, just the three of us, somewhere Rachel had never been. We were going to be fine, better than fine. We were going to be free. And in the end, that was the best revenge of all.